everyone, Erika with a K here. Today we're going to make one of my favorite dishes, Stromboli. What's great about this dish is it's quick, it's easy, and you can add any toppings you'd like. So I am going to make a Stromboli that my mom always made. My husband's not a fan of mushrooms, so that's going to be the surprise. I always go with the ready-to-bake pizza dough because I don't have the time to deal with pizza dough, and this is fantastic. My mom's always used the frozen pizza dough and let it thaw. The trick when you're using the frozen pizza dough is to let it thaw, but don't let it rise. We're going to start with a floured surface. I have my pizza dough in a ball, and I've used a little bit of flour on my hands so that it doesn't stick. And once you have that floured surface, you can go ahead, pop your pizza dough down there, thin it out as much as you can. My mom used to make a huge Stromboli. I mean, she would roll that dough out so paper thin, and the reason was because she needed to make that Stromboli go as far as it possibly could. We had so many aunts and uncles at that house, and we needed to make sure there was enough Stromboli for everybody. So the thinner she could get the dough, because the bigger the Stromboli. I won't worry about that too much for our family because there's only the 4 of us. So go with the thickness that you're comfortable with. You do have to remember though, the thicker the dough, the longer it's going to take to cook in the oven. If you have some really thick dough that you're jelly rolling, it's not going to cook in the middle. So you do want it pretty thin. As thin as you can make it without screwing it up. All right, I have my pizza dough rolled out as thin as I can make it and as big as I can make it. It's not a perfect circle. That's not that big of a deal. My mom was so good at making a perfect circle Stromboli. I am not. I don't think I've ever made this Stromboli by myself before. Always made it with my mom. I've never made it for my kids or my husband. So this will be everybody's first time trying it. I'm really hoping everybody likes it because I love it. And it's so easy to make. What I'm doing now is I'm putting an egg wash over my dough. Something that I'm adding to my dough that my mother didn't do is I'm going to add some pasta sprinkle to give it a little extra flavor. I learned this trick from my boss when I was in high school. I worked at the local pizza shop and my boss came straight from Italy. And so he taught me little tricks about putting some seasoning on the pizza dough. So I'm going to go ahead and use my pasta sprinkle, my favorite. This has sweet basil, oregano, thyme, and garlic in it. Now that you have your egg wash on, the first thing you want to put on is your spinach. I highly recommend using vegetables in your Stromboli. It cuts down on some of the grease that the cheese and the meat gives you. It's a great way to sneak in greens for the kids too. Next, we're going to put on some mozzarella. Now, the recipe that my mom gave me does not tell me how much mozzarella. It just says 1 package of mozzarella. So I bought a pound of mozzarella at the store, and I'm just going to use as much as will fit on my dough. And I'm just going to lay a single layer of mozzarella over all of the spinach. Next up is the provolone. Now we have the mushrooms. We'll see if he notices. I sliced them really, really thin because I want them to cook pretty well. If you like those big meaty chunks, of course, you want to cut them thicker. However, I'm trying to get my family to eat mushrooms without them complaining about it. So we'll see how that goes. After the mushrooms, pepperoni. My mom would always get a nice big stick of pepperoni and have the deli slice it long ways so that it was much easier to put the pepperoni on. However, I looked in my deli and they did not have pepperoni sticks. So I had to go with the pre-sliced rounds, which is going to take a little bit longer to put everything together. It was also really hard to find pizza dough where I was. It's so different when you're shopping at home versus shopping in your new state. What you find and the different prices. I love my store back home. I love my market basket. Okay, we have the pepperoni all worked in, and that was the last layer. I'm going to call this my poor man's Stromboli because it's the regular cheese at the deli, it's the regular spinach, nothing fancy about the mushrooms, nothing fancy about the meat. It's just pepperoni slices. But you can make this like gourmet. You can make this with some nice prosciutto. You can make this with some really nice salami, sausage, and some green peppers and onions. You can really dress this up really nice. This is just one way to do it. This was my favorite way because my mom used to do it. So please have fun with this. It's super easy. So far it's only taken me like 10 minutes and most of it is talking to you guys. So don't worry about it. It's super easy and quick. Kids would love putting it together. It's just like putting together a pizza, only better. Now we're gonna go ahead and roll this up like a jelly roll. So just carefully start your roll. If you make a hole, it's not a big deal, but you do want to try to avoid it. And I can tell I made it nice and thin the way it's rolling, just like I remember. And then as you roll, you can stuff your ingredients back in. You can stuff them when you're done your roll too, but sometimes I find it easier to stuff them while you go. So here's my jelly roll. And I got most of this tucked okay. I'm gonna clean it up a little bit. Now my pan, what I did was I used tin foil and then I put just a little bit of oil on it. A lot of people like to use parchment paper because it will suck up some of that grease and make it a little bit better. I just didn't have any parchment paper. So I can tell my bread is a little thin down here. That might cause some issues. It might break a little bit while it's cooking. We'll see how it goes. But now that I have the stromboli on the pan, I'm gonna do a couple things. First, I'm gonna do the egg wash on the top to give it that nice golden color. We're gonna add some more of that pasta sprinkle. Now I'm gonna put this in a 400-degree oven for about 20 minutes and kind of see how it looks.